Welcome to Frontline. It's 6 o'clock here on the East Coast.
Today, I'm proud to announce that the FBI has arrested one of the key participants behind the Benghazi attack.
Big news today, an arrest made in the Benghazi terror attack that left 4 Americans dead. We'll be speaking with one of the survivors, the man who literally wrote the book on that night. We'll talk to him in just a few minutes. Also, members of Congress will reportedly be able to review the complete unredacted version of the Epstein files on Monday. Will the American people ever get to see them? And NFL legend Eric Dickerson is blasting the league's choice to have Puerto Rican rapper Bad Bunny perform at this weekend's Super Bowl halftime show. Dickerson saying the NFL will do anything for money, wondering why the league couldn't pick someone who at least speaks English. I'm Lidia Curanaj in for Carl Higbie, and Frontline starts right now. For almost 14 years, justice was delayed, but it's no longer denied for some. The Department of Justice announcing the arrest of a key participant tied to the Benghazi terrorist attack, Zubair al-Bakush.
Let this case serve as a reminder. If you commit a crime against the American people anywhere in this world, President Trump's Justice Department will find you.
For more than a decade now, the Democrat machine, aided by a compliant media, told the American people to simply forget Benghazi. But we'll never forget the horror as it unfolded on September 11th, 2012, at 2 U.S. facilities in Benghazi, Libya. The video of our own ambassador being dragged and beaten by a murderous mob, it's forever etched in my mind, and no doubt yours.
For 13 hours, the American cavalry never came. For 13 hours, they waited for help that never came. Today, President Trump is making sure that American justice is coming for those individuals responsible for the deaths of those 4 Americans. Bakush is now on U.S. soil because of the President, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Kash Patel. The FBI, the Department of Justice, never forgot.
We'll also never forget that Benghazi should have never happened in the first place. We have the emails. We've seen the official records to prove that it could have all been prevented. Security warnings were issued. Americans there begged for protection as Libya spiraled out of control. But their pleas were ignored by their own Secretary of State.
The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Yeah, of course, it didn't make a difference to you, Hillary. It still doesn't, right? You still went off and ran for president. She didn't care. She never cared. She chose politics over people. Under her watch, she allowed those Americans to be massacred, dragged through the streets. But the deaths, their deaths of these heroes will not be in vain. Ambassador Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, Glenn Darty. The failure of our government didn't end with the murders of these men. Washington then had the audacity to spin a deliberate, coordinated narrative of deflection and denial. Here's a flashback of Obama on Letterman just a week after the Benghazi attack.
The ambassador to Libya killed in an attack on the consulate in Benghazi. Right. Is this an act of war? Are we at war now?
No.
What happens here?
Well, here's what happened. You had a video that was released by somebody who lives here, sort of a shadowy character who is an extremely offensive video directed at Muhammad and Islam.
Making fun of the Prophet Muhammad.
Making fun of the Prophet Muhammad. And so this caused great offense in much of the Muslim world.
Yeah. Blame it on a video, right? It was just a spontaneous protest that happened to occur on the anniversary of 9/11. Meanwhile, Obama, he knew it was a planned attack, right? But they all lied. because, of course, it was an election year. They wanted to protect Hillary so she could run for president. Today's arrest, though, it raises a very important question, that if justice can finally reach those terrorists, they had to extradite and bring this guy here at 3 o'clock in the morning. What about the decision makers? What about Hillary? She was warned. She was briefed. This is not rhetoric, guys. This is reality. Yet Democrats, they still call it a propaganda. They called it a conspiracy theory. Hillary has even suggested people be arrested for posting so-called misinformation.
And boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence.
Yeah, she would love people to be arrested for speaking the truth. Here we are, though, 2026, Hill and Bill, they're still untouchable, right? They're the darlings of the Democrat Party. We all know there's a two-tier justice system. If she were a Republican, she'd be behind bars serving her sentence, her life sentence, as we speak. You know, while I do applaud the Justice Department for this latest arrest, real justice doesn't stop at the men with the blood on their hands or who coordinated or who carried out this attack. It ends with the leaders who still believe they're above the law. Joining us now, U.S. Marine and member of Benghazi Annex Security Team. He's also the best-selling co-author of 13 Hours, Mark Geist. Oz, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on.
You nearly lost your life that night. 13 hours of pure hell left just hanging, right? A lifetime of healing. Is the arrest of this suspect justice, or is it just a small step towards it?
No, I mean, I think we have to always seek out and hold those that do wrong accountable, and this is just another step in it. And what we don't see is what's going on in the background. And I think this is, again, just another step, but it's a step in the right direction. And like you said, or Hillary said, people ought to be held accountable for misleading Americans. And, that's probably the one thing I agree with, because then she should be held accountable.
Right. To hear that now infamous clip again, though, where she said, "So what? It happened." The fact that she still doesn't really take any responsibility, makes excuses for how it all went down, abandoning all of you. What do you think should happen to her?
I think I know that nothing will, but until she faces her maker. And ultimately, that's where I get solace and gratitude, is understanding that she will be held accountable. We are always all going to be held accountable eventually for our actions. And for her, that's going to be worse than anything that could happen to her here on Earth.
Yeah, if not in this life, in the next. Why the lies and the spin? The gaslighting, blaming it on a video. You heard Obama in that clip there saying, "Oh, this video, they were ridiculing Mohammed." Trump, Bondi, Patel, our viewers, Carl, of course, we've all said we'll never forget, but I feel like a lot of Americans have forgotten Benghazi. Why is it so important for them to remember what happened that day?
Well, I think it was a major part of history. I mean, 14 years ago, I don't know that I would have thought that Benghazi would still be in the news. And that's a testimony to why it should be taught in our history lessons of what happens, because we have 172 to 175 diplomatic facilities around the world. We have Americans putting their life on the line every day, whether they're employees of State Department, military personnel, contractors, whatever. And this is something that could happen. I mean, we saw it back in 1983, and which was significant in why I joined the Marine Corps, was the bombing of the Marine barracks in Lebanon, as well as the embassy in Lebanon, and what happened in that time. It can happen again, and if we do not go back and look as why and what were the factors that took place to that allowed it to happen, then it's gonna happen again, and we are just up against the wall with that.
Less than a minute. If you could say something to Hillary Clinton right now, what would you want to say to her?
I can't say that now.
Can't say it on TV.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing would be, you know what, I forgive you. Because the forgiveness isn't for her, the forgiveness is for me, because I can't allow the feelings that I could have for her. If I don't forgive, then those feelings are going to eat up me instead of do anything to her. I don't let her occupy space in my brain.
Mark Geist, beautiful sentiment there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there is no denying who was at the center of Benghazi, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And by the way, just a short time ago, I checked her X account. Still not a word from her about this arrest. Zubair al-Bakush, he is facing murder, arson, and terrorism charges. He is now the third individual to face charges related to this attack. But should more heads roll? Joining me now, Brigadier General Holt. General, thank you so much for joining us. Clinton has said about Benghazi that she doesn't know more what she could have done.
Really? Well, how about we don't have the Benghazi in the first place? How about we don't even dispatch Chris Stevens over weapons matters in Libya? I'll tell you what, for me, my anger is right where it was that night because I was in the U.S. European command post. And not only were we watching with horror as this played out, but as a brigadier general and standing next to a two-star general and special operations guy, we were working an exercise that night. I know full well what we could have done. I can't say that here, and I won't. But what I am telling you is the people who really need to be held to account for this haven't been. And I think they should be, and I don't think anybody should let it go until they are. And that's not just Hillary. That's every rung right on up that chain, because what happened is an abomination. And when we talk about leaving no one behind, we didn't have to leave anyone behind. It shouldn't have happened. And then the stuff that happened afterwards from that. Look, I think the timing is extremely interesting from a DOJ perspective, that here's this guy, and Hillary's already going up on the Hill to testify about stuff. Interesting, because I'm sure he's got loads of information about who paid him, how that group was paid, how they were activated, where they came from. And quite frankly, I'm all for sunlight shining in, because I remember that day like it was yesterday. And I've never, as a general officer, felt so helpless while our own were getting cut to ribbons unnecessarily.
Right. We saw the Afghanistan withdrawal, too. I mean, we left our men behind. It's so similar. So as that famous saying goes, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. But this Clinton, she thinks she's above the law. You know, and that you see the Democrats, they have this playbook, right? They play cover for her. All of them, they stick to the same script to protect her. Yep. We know she ran for president. Thank God it didn't happen. That Democrat playbook, Blaine, is still in effect, and zero accountability for any of them. I want you to take a listen to Hillary and what she said when she was grilled before Congress for 11 hours. Let's remind people what she said.
Very personally painful accusation. It has been rejected and disproven by nonpartisan, dispassionate investigators, but nevertheless, having it continued to be bandied around is deeply distressing to me. You know, I would imagine I've thought more about what happened than all of you put together. I've lost more sleep than all of you put together. I have been racking my brain about what more could have been done.
You just heard her say that it's been disproven. What could she have done more? She's only upset because I think she got caught, because of course they tried to lie and cover up. General, will she ever be held accountable? We know she's going to testify, Bill, and everything for Epstein, but this too, I mean, we can't let it go.
She has to be held accountable. And let's broaden the scope out a little bit. The American people, and I'm pointing my finger at the Department of Justice right now, we aren't going to let this go. This season of accountability, this two-tier justice system where if you are strong enough, powerful enough, and have enough money, nothing ever happens to you. But the IRS has no problem persecuting Americans, and FBI kicking in doors of soccer moms who really spoke up at a school board meeting. Right. Well, this is evidence of that. And she honestly should be a nominee now for the Oscars. I guess that's coming up. It's not too late to get her on the ballot list, because those crocodile tears of hers Oh, spare me. I was there that night, lady, and I have zero respect for you. And I speak for a lot of veterans who modified the arc of their careers that night.
Right, and let's not forget the little old ladies, the priest that got dragged off to prison, thrown behind bars for praying outside of abortion clinics where babies were being murdered, yet she's allowed to walk free. General Blaine Holt, thank you, sir, so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lydia.
Coming up, the president of prayer. Trump makes a big announcement at the National Prayer Breakfast, how he plans on making our country one nation under God. Once again, we'll discuss with the White House faith director later on in this show. But first, oversight on Omar. Is the Somali pirate about to finally walk the plank out of Congress after her net worth skyrocketed to more than $30 million? A House Oversight Committee is now investigating. Those details next.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all three main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
I was tired of being exhausted at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and constantly suffering from brain fog.
Toxic EMF radiation is coming from your cell phone and smart devices and being absorbed by your body.
We don't see EMFs. It's out of sight, out of mind.
That's why people around the world are choosing Bodywell. Bodywell's technology holds a harmonic pattern that helps your body respond better to EMF exposure, reducing EMF radiation absorption up to 80%. Just peel, stick, and protect.
This little device changed everything.
Bodywell's BioCard protects your entire body. Simply place it in your pocket.
I didn't believe in EMF protection until I actually felt the difference.
I sleep much better, more like a baby.
I mean, my kids are my world, and I want to do everything I can to protect them and give them a better life.
Order your BioCard today, and for a limited time, get a BioChip, a $99 value for free. Go to bodywell.com. That's bodywell.com.
Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar hates this country, but she has achieved the American dream like few have. Federal financial disclosures revealing that Rose Lake Inc., a company that she owns with her husband, saw its value skyrocket. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer posting on X, "I'm demanding financial information from companies linked to Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar's husband. His companies reportedly went from $51,000 to $30 million in 1 year with zero investor information. So we want to know who's funding this and who's buying access." Comer writing in his letter to Omar's husband, quote, "Given that these companies do not publicly list their investors or where their money comes from, this sudden jump in value raises concerns that unknown individuals may be investing to gain influence with your wife." Pay for play fraud from a Somali congresswoman in Minnesota? You don't say. Joining me now to discuss, Florida Congressman Randy Fine. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You have been leading the effort to get Omar expelled from Congress, and now her husband's winery is finally being investigated thoroughly, a winery that has no address, no license, no website, and no wine to sell, yet it's worth, what, tens of millions of dollars?
Well, look, it's like the Quality Leering Center. You know, Ilhan Omar's like the chief Somali pirate on the ship, and she's showing it in these filings. To make $30 million without any evidence or proof when you're a broke congresswoman just a few years ago reeks of corruption, particularly because her husband wasn't wealthy. So we're clearly dealing with someone who comes from a community that has no issue with pillaging the United States. And I think we can see it right there on her financial disclosure. She's doing the same in Congress.
Speaking of Comer investigating, Clinton has been going after him on X after she and Bill skipped their subpoenas in the House Oversight Committee's Epstein investigation. She posted, "So let's stop the games. If you want this fight, Comer, let's have it in public. You love to talk about transparency. There's nothing more transparent than a public hearing, cameras on. We will be there." What do you make of this gaslighting? What do you think about Hill and Bill saying, hey, we want the truth to come out. We want to be on camera. We want all this coming out. What do you think about that?
Well, I think gaslighting is the right term. The reason we almost voted to hold them in contempt is they refused to do a public hearing. I think what's happened is the blowback, the lying hasn't worked, so they're just running into the wind. But make no mistake, they were offered the chance to testify in public, and they said no. But again, we're talking about people who question what the definition of is. These are not honest people. They're people who, as you just talked about with Benghazi, got Americans killed. And so we're dealing with people who are not upstanding, ethical citizens. We will get to the bottom of it, and we will expose their relationships with Epstein.
Another Democrat who needs some investigating, Jasmine High on her eyelash glue Crockett. Federal Election Commission filing showing she used just over $124,000 from her House and Senate campaign funds on luxury lodging, high-end transportation, private security in 2025. I've noticed, too, that she wears a lot of designer clothes as well. And, you know, those wigs, they don't come cheap either.
Well, look, one of the things I've learned since I got to Congress is a lot of these Democrats live high on the hog. You may not know this, but if you're running for Congress as an out-of-work Democrat, you can pay yourself a candidate salary. You can literally rip people off for donations and then pay yourself. So there's this culture among Democrats of living large off their campaign contributions. These are people who generally have achieved nothing outside of being elected to politics. I was a software entrepreneur for many years before I got into it. I didn't do it for the money, but for many of these people, you're talking about Ilhan Omar, Jasmine Crockett, it's how much money can I put in my own pocket? And you can see that in that report.
You've also talked a lot about, real quick, I got to get to this. You've talked a lot about Sharia law, Muslim takeover. I want you to take a listen to Marxist Mayor Mamdani, what he said today. Listen to this. Oh, this is Randy Fine.
There are 57 countries in the world that you can live if you want to live under Sharia. Working with my colleagues, we're going to make sure this one is not number 58.
So he's been speaking Arabic. He's been talking about this and that. He fired the head of the anti-Semitic, task force here in New York. Are you worried that your words are coming true?
Well, absolutely, because they are coming true in New York City. Mamdani today basically said that under Islam, we need to let unlimited illegal immigrants come to the United States. This from a religion that says if you're not Muslim, you can't go to Mecca. So we are dealing with a mainstream faith that traffics in lies and dishonesty, and we can see it in New York, where 1 month in, they can't even pick up the garbage. The only garbage they need to pick up is their mayor, Mamdani.
Oh, but when they die, they've got, the 72 virgins waiting for them in heaven, so all will be well for them. Congressman Randy Fine, sir, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, the days of mutilating our kids over gender ideology may finally be over. Just days after a woman won a lawsuit after being butchered as a child, major medical groups are now backtracking their support for transitioning kids. All that and much more in our Culture Clash coming up next.
I think the biggest selling point for Newsmax is we're not doing the same boring, predictable news. You flip through the other channels, you got these high-paid hosts. They say the same thing every night. You know what they're going to say. It's a little different.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
When it comes to my daily heart health supplement, I've got 3 rules. It's got to be plant-based, it's got to be doctor recommended, and it's got to be Superbeats from Human.
Superbeats is the #1 cardiologist recommended beet brand for heart health support with clinically studied grapeseed extract for nearly 2 times more effective blood pressure support than diet and exercise alone.
Superbeats works. I swear by it, and I know you're going to love it too.
Try Superbeats today at human.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. So Nobella changed that.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation.
I decided to give Sonobello a try. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is our breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative that sculpts, tightens, and lifts your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside. And Lift EX is exclusively available at Sonobello. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever. Call to book your free consultation today.
The perfect gifts. The Jewelry Exchange has diamond pendants $99, diamond clusters $249 per carat, 5-carat diamond tennis bracelets $8.99, 1-carat studs and solitaires $2.99. Great service, selection, and prices. Factory direct. The Jewelry Exchange.
When we started Allegiance, we were shocked to learn how many American flags are actually made overseas.
If there's one thing that deserves to be made here in America, it should start with the American flag.
At Allegiance, we do it differently. Flags 100% made in America by Americans with American materials.
Join our pledge to make the American flag truly American.
Visit showallegiance.com to get your high-quality American flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
The days of so-called doctors butchering our kids may finally be over, just days after a woman won a $2 million lawsuit against New York doctors for cutting off her breasts when she was just 16 years old. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons issuing a statement advising against sex change surgeries for minors. The statement, in part writing, ASPS concludes there is insufficient evidence demonstrating a favorable risk-benefit ratio for the pathway of gender-related endocrine and surgical interventions in children and adolescents. And this isn't the only medical group finally condemning child mutilation. The American Medical Association also announcing a similar statement endorsing restrictions on surgeries for minors. Joining us now, managing editor of Newsbusters, Curtis Houck. Also with us, president of Accuracy in Media, Adam Guillette. Curtis, what do you think about this? I mean, long overdue.
Right. I think it's long overdue, Lydia, although I don't think we can rest on our laurels because President Trump is only going to be in office for a few more years and nothing is guaranteed, as we know, in politics. So you can just see, and we'll see what happens at the state level if California and some of these other states start jerking these groups around. But interestingly, of course, there was no media coverage of this kind of thing this week because they don't want to acknowledge that biology is, I guess, coming back to at least some areas of academia.
Right. It's sad it had to take a lawsuit, and I feel like $2 million is only a drop in the bucket after what that girl went through. Let's pivot to this story. Algerian Olympic boxer Amani Khalif has confirmed to having male chromosomes after winning gold in the women's boxing in the 2024 Paris Olympics. If you remember, people that went up against her said they felt like they got punched in the face by a guy. Khalif admitting having the SRY gene, which is located on the Y chromosome. as we know, if you did your bio in high school, guys, that's found only in guys. Women have XX, guys have XY. Khalif, though, still plans to compete in the women's division in the 2028 LA Olympics. Adam, what do you think about this?
Well, it was incredibly funny, actually, reading the details from the Federation when they said that he will no longer be able to compete against the girls. You know, they get it. Boxing gets it quite clearly and can define it in a rather binary manner. Meanwhile, K-12 school districts across America struggle with something that was so easily handled by the Boxing Federation. Our hidden camera investigative journalists still go in red states where they are more than happy to put boys in girls sports in defiance of state law. You would think that if the international federations governing these sports can get a handle on it, our local school districts could too.
Another big story that's dominating the headlines, Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy, she is still missing. There are still no suspects named as the search enters now a 6th day, but the FBI announcing a $50,000 reward for information leading to Nancy Guthrie. Savannah Guthrie, Nancy Guthrie, we know even from her social media, been very critical of the president, yet the president putting out all the stops, right? He's trying to help find her. Kash Patel is heading out there to Tucson. What do you make of this case, Curtis? Because I think it's every adult child's worst nightmare to have your elderly parent being kidnapped in the middle of the night.
Yeah, this is gut-wrenching stuff. And just a few moments ago, the NBC affiliate in Tucson said they've received a second message from someone claiming to have held beholding Nancy Guthrie. And this is what the president and FBI Director Kash Patel are about, like representing and working for all Americans. We're willing to put aside our political differences. And yes, we should have fierce debates about politics and policy. And yes, it does get heated at times. But at the end of the day, we're all Americans. We're all in this together. They have an amazing life story, Nancy Guthrie, Savannah and her siblings, about God and faith, despite having lost her husband and father respectively when Savannah was 16. So my heart goes out to them. I just have to say, on a funnier note, the boxer story, I wonder if the Washington Post, Lydia and Adam, are going to be covering this. Oh, wait, they laid off all their sports journalists.
Adam, 10 seconds to you real quick about Nancy.
Well, it's a terrible tragedy. We'll all be praying for the situation to resolve in a positive manner. That said, I don't like when presidents pick and choose based on celebrity status where to put federal resources. There's plenty of people dealing with horrible situations, but just because they're not politically connected doesn't mean they shouldn't get the same treatment.
You're right about that. All right, Curtis and Adam, thank you both.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Coming up, President Trump making a big announcement about our nation's relationship with the Lord Almighty. A president's prayer next. We'll discuss.
If you don't change that, I'm going to Mrs. Reagan and I'm resigning.
The Reagans, the Bushes, and the Clintons. White House usher Chris Emery saw it all. Discover the secret lives of the first families. Watch White House Usher, the inside story.
Omaha Steaks is America's original butcher.
Hold on, steak voiceover guy. I got this. Omaha Steaks is America's original butcher. But what's that mean? It means all these steaks are USDA certified tender.
Well, she's right.
Yeah, they love it. I love that they love it. This is why you get Omaha Steaks.
Right now, get 4 USDA certified tender steaks free when you visit omahasteaks.com/tender.
Skip the grocery store and
skip the grocery store and get Omaha Steaks today.
Anybody who's struggling with alcohol should try Or Health. Within a week, the cravings were completely gone. Or Health is safe, science-backed, and it works. I couldn't believe how easy it was. Alcohol doesn't run my life anymore.
Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
I've had the highest mountains, I've had the deepest rivers. I'll take it in, but don't look down. 'Cause I'm on top of the world, I'm on top of the world, I've been waiting this long, the whole minute.
Champions trust Cosequin, the #1 vet-recommended retail joint health supplement brand and official joint health supplement of the Westminster Dog Show.
$12,720. That's the average cost you pay for term life insurance over 20 years. $12,720 that you could spend on family, loved ones, or yourself. With a return of premium life insurance plan from Senior Life, getting all that money back is possible. That's right. With Return of Premium Life Insurance, we don't save you hundreds of dollars, we save you thousands, because we give you all your money back. It works like this. If you pass away while you're insured, your loved ones get a check for the coverage amount you chose. But if you're still living at the end of the term, you get back all the money you paid, guaranteed. Spend it any way you wish. Why would you buy life insurance from another company when Senior Life gives you all your money back? Get all your money back with Return of Premium Life Insurance from Senior Life. Call the number now for free information. You have no obligation. Call now.
Muscle cramps were keeping me up at night, so then I tried Slowmag, the magnesium plus calcium supplement that helps relax tense muscles so I can rest comfortably. And Slowmag tablets have a slow-release formula that's gentle on my stomach. That's why I use Slowmag.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
We are going to do something that everyone said, like, that's tough. We're going to rededicate America as one nation under God. You just can't have a great country if you don't have religion. You have to believe in something. You have to believe that what we're doing, there's a reason for it.
One nation under God. Who would have thought that even needed to be said anymore? But President Trump declaring his intent to rededicate the United States to the Lord Almighty. He made the announcement during yesterday's National Prayer Breakfast. For more on the president's mission to bring faith back to our nation, joining me now, Jenny Korn, White House Faith Director. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon from the snowy White House.
Snowy New York City as well. You know, the president also said that you can't be a Democrat and also be a person of faith. Would you agree with that?
Well, you know, yesterday was such an amazing time at the National Prayer Breakfast. 3,000 people of faith from 140 countries. And I was able to ride with the president all the way to the event. And it was with such joy and enthusiasm that we're bringing religion back to America. And he knows that he's been a huge part of that. And today we're celebrating our 1-year anniversary of the first ever White House Faith Office. And so those quotes that you just mentioned right at the front, that's what I posted about yesterday. And I think that's what the focus is on. The focus is that we're bringing religion back to America, and people feel like they really have the right to talk about their faith freely, where they didn't in the last administration.
They certainly didn't. And I think the president underwent a drastic almost transformation. You could almost see it happening in real time when he was almost assassinated, that fateful July 13th day when the assassin's bullet missed him. I mean, it hit him in the ear, but missed his brain, missed his head by mere millimeters. Do you think that the president has changed? You hear him talking about God more and more every time he's out there.
Right, and I've had the honor to work for him since 2016 and all 4 years in the first Trump White House. And yes, while he was very pro-faith then, and we welcomed faith leaders all the time, and we even prayed with him many times in the Oval Office, there has been a change. And he admits to it privately and publicly that he believes that God has spared his life to save this nation and to bring peace around the world. And one of the best examples is when we go in the Oval Office, he's so proud of these 2 angels that he instilled himself in the oval on the ceiling, and he said that's to guard over him and all the people that come through the Oval Office. So you do see a change in him, and it's in his heart, and it's just something that he's believed in since he was a child, really. But making this White House Faith Office, he sees the difference in this, and we get to carry that responsibility and mantle and really implement policy that affect people of faith.
He also wants to bring faith back to the school children, because we are seeing the left. That's where they want to get them, indoctrinate them. Let's take a listen to what the president said right here.
Today, I'm also pleased to announce that the Department of Education is officially issuing its new guidance to protect the right to prayer in our public schools. That's a big deal.
It certainly is. What do you think about that?
It's so important, and the White House Faith Office was working hand in hand with the Department of Justice and the Department of Education to make sure that that guidance was ready so the president could announce it yesterday. And you know what's interesting, and most people probably wouldn't know this, we get story after story from kids from kindergarten all the way to high school about them being denied the right to pray in school, whether it's in the classroom or whether it's lunchtime or on their free time. And we're going, what is this happening? But it's happening at the local level, but it's been brought up to the federal level, and the president has met with these kids in the Oval Office, and we've met with them through the Religious Liberty Commission as well. We're letting them tell their stories, and we're fixing those wrongs. Every child in every school, whether it's a Christian school or a Jewish school or just a public school, should be able to have their right to freedom of speech and freedom of worship and be able to pray in their own school.
Amen. Jenny Korn, thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us.
Thank you, and happy anniversary to our White House Faith Office.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, from an administration that values faith to one that is basically flipping the bird to the Jewish faithful. New York City's Marxist Mayor Mamdani removing Moshe Davis as the executive director of the mayor's office to combat anti-Semitism, replacing him with this woman right here, Felisa Wisdom, who runs a left-leaning organization, although Wisdom claims to believe in Israel's right to exist. She also ripped Israel over what she called, quote, state-sanctioned violence against the Palestinian people. Joining me now, the man who's just kicked out of his office, Rabbi Moshe Davis. Rabbi, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be on here with you today.
You know, I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. What do you think?
Yeah, these weren't unexpected turn of events from what we've seen go on during the campaign, their first few weeks in office, in which, you know, they're looking to take a different direction when it comes to the mayor's office of common anti-Semitism. I am someone who foremost was caring to make sure that Jewish New Yorkers are safe. That was my role, that was my job, and I was trying to do everything we can. And I'm hoping that that work continues under the mayor's office of common anti-Semitism, because that's important.
You know, the NYPD has been touting these low crime numbers, but we have seen anti-Semitism skyrocketing, 182% increase, 182% increase in anti-Semitic attacks against the Jewish faithful, and yet they remove you from office. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, the current situation is deplorable. I mean, we have, just the other day, there was a kid in school who sent out a message to his classmates, kill all the Jews. And when you see these incidents happen, when you see a Gravesend playground in Borough Park, graffiti with swastikas, and it's done by kids, you realize that we have some rot in our society, and we need to put real effort into changing that and making sure that we're protecting our Jewish community.
We certainly do. So the Super Bowl, they put out this new ad about anti-Semitism. Let's take a look at it.
Not funny.
Do not listen to that.
Thank you, man.
I know how it feels. Nah, they're not worth it, bro.
Not worth it, bro. What do you think about the Super Bowl tackling anti-Semitism there?
So I come from the world of Eric Adams, in which Black and Jewish leaders stand arm in arm to combat anti-Semitism. And we understand that it's a specific hate directed specifically at Jewish people. And, you know, while this ad, I think, you know, does a great job of showing that allyship, I think also there is this idea that we also have to be strong, proud Jews. And we shouldn't be worried to, you know, stand with our yarmulke on our heads and be proud of who we are as a people. And, you know, sometimes that has to come from within.
It certainly does. Why do you think it's cool? It seems like it's the cool thing to do among young people to hate Jewish people. Why do you think that is?
Propaganda and activism has bleed into society in terrible ways. I mean, what these kids are seeing in their feeds, what they're seeing from their friends, and unfortunately, it's also coming from teachers, professors, and across the spectrum. And we must do everything we can. I mean, the reason why the mayor's office commented anti-Semitism was to give municipal powers to the mayor's office to say, work with our campuses, work with our schools, fix the education, and making sure that houses of worship are protected, institutions are protected.
You know what they say, they always come for the Jews first. Rabbi Davis, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, kooky Kamala rebranding her headquarters account, but even the Democrats have absolutely no idea what the word salad queen is doing. We've got that and more next. You're watching Carl Higbie's Frontline.
A lot of people don't know their investment portfolios are quietly funding radical left-wing agendas. Is yours? To find out, download the free Monorail Investment Analyzer app. It reveals exactly what your dollars are backing in seconds, so you can align your investments to match your values and grow your money with confidence. Plus, see if you qualify for a $1,000 trading bonus. Visit monorail.com to download the free app and get your free portfolio analysis now.
My heart has experienced life-changing wins, losses, and countless miles. To keep living at my speed, I trust Cunol CoQ10. CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for heart health. Cunol, the brand I trust.
If the power goes out in the middle of winter, do you have a way to stay warm? If not, you need the Vesta off-grid space heater from My Patriot Supply. It's compact, safe to use indoors, and best of all, it doesn't need electricity. Right now, you can get a free Vesta and other bonus gifts when you order the Winter Survival Kit from My Patriot Supply. Just go to mypatriotsupply.com to see everything included. That's mypatriotsupply.com.
When I'm congested, I can't breathe, can't sleep. That's why I Navage. The powered suction gives me the power to remove congestion fast by flushing out germs, mucus, bacteria, and viruses. In like 30 seconds, I can feel the results.
Get #1 doctor-recommended Navage.
Whoa, 90% off? I have to purchase now. My phone!
That was a scam link.
Try this one. We installed PCmatic.
PCmatic blocked ransomware before threats can strike.
It's 100% made in America security.
Trusted by homes, businesses, governments, and now you. Stop guessing.
Start blocking.
Get PCmatic.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
And that breaking news, President Trump, there he is, departing Washington, D.C. Looks like it's raining there for the sunny Florida. He needs some much needed rest there. President Trump about to depart for Florida. All right, meantime, thank God this woman didn't become president of the United States. Cookie Kamala, she strikes again.
HQ.
The word salad queen and failed presidential candidate rebooted her Kamala HQ social media account and is now rebranding it as the new Gen Z-led progressive content hub. I don't even know what that means. Is she gearing up for another campaign? Or maybe she needs to raise some funds. I mean, after all, an $8.5 million Malibu mansion doesn't pay for itself. Also, according to a new report, even the Democrats have no idea what Kamala is up to. Former Biden staffer is telling the Daily Caller that another account that makes memes, wow, groundbreaking, and great team, important goal. Terrible candidate. Even CNN has been making fun of her. Take a look at this.
By the way, the handle they're using, you can see there, we're zooming in on it, at headquarters_67. 67, as the kids used to say. Well, you know, used to say a lot of things. And I think they also used to say, that's probably cringe.
What are they trying to do here? What's the strategy? What's this about? It reminds me very much of the Harris campaign in that respect, in that we're still asking these questions. Buzz is not a substitute for a disciplined strategic message, which is what they didn't have.
6'7". My daughter hates that, by the way. Now she put it to 6'8". I mean, that's their girl, though, the Democrat, you know, winning solution there. Cringy Kamala. Joining me now to discuss, Jeffrey Lord, contributing editor at the American Spectator. Also with us, Matt Foldi, editor-in-chief for the Washington Reporter. Jeffrey Lord, what is Kamala up to?
I know this is going to sound very bizarre, but I think she wants to be the next Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon, if you'll recall, was vice president of the United States, lost his presidential bid in 1960, immediately tried to get elected again to something. So he ran for governor of California 2 years later, got clobbered, and then spent the next 6 years running around America, selling himself and remaking his entire image so that actually in 1968 he got elected. And I think she's of the mind that if she persists and changes here, there, or everywhere, she's going to win. I don't think she's right, but I think that's what she's about.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
By the way, wait, Lydia, the other difference, though, is that people actually wanted to hear from Richard Nixon, and I'm not sure anyone wants to hear from Kamala Harris. You saw her book tour.
Don't.
Didn't even really work. One thing to note, though, with this launch.
Real quick, Matt, quick. I want to get to this because we're running out of time. Speaking of people who make no sense, as we're watching the President of the United States depart for Florida, I want you guys to take a listen to New York City's Muslim Mayor Mamdani's thoughts on immigration. This clip just blew my mind when he said this today. Listen to this.
And I consider my own faith, Islam, a religion built upon a narrative of migration. The story of the Hijrah reminds us that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a stranger too, who fled Mecca and was welcomed in Medina. Surah An-Nahl 1642 tells us, as for those who immigrated in the cause of Allah after being persecuted, we will surely bless them with a good home in this world.
Assalamu alaikum to you, Mamdani. Foldi, what do you think? I mean, this is, what is that?
Well, he is anti-colonizer. Islam is a religion built on conquest, literally from basically the get-go. But that is, I guess, the good type of conquest. And the partnership that Kamala Harris launched, by the way, is with a George Soros-funded left-wing dark money group. So I actually think there could be something here far bigger than a cringe online campaign.
And Jeffrey Lord, real quick, what do you think about Mamdani, what he said there about immigration, relating it to Muhammad?
You know, common sense and history says that is the history of the Jewish people, is migrating. Let my people go. Get them out of Egypt, as I recall it was, and migrate to Palestine. So he may not know it, but he's just described the history of the Jewish people. Maybe he needs to take another look at what he's saying.
Jeffrey Lord, Matthew Foldi, thank you guys so much for joining us. But before we go, thank you. 1% of the world gets the opportunity to play in the Super Bowl, but this player we're going to talk about only had a 1% chance of living. Why every life truly matters next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears.
Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives.
Total Beets, America's best-selling Beets brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beets blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beets blood pressure support soft chews today.
Since leaving the gold standard, the U.S. dollar has lost almost 90% of its value. Meanwhile, global central banks are buying up gold at unprecedented rates. Join the many Americans who are returning to gold to store their wealth. That's why we've created the ultimate gold buying guide, and we'll ship it right to your door free of charge. Call Texas Bullion Exchange today or visit gettexasgold.com for your free gold buying guide while supplies last.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. So Nobella changed that.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation.
I decided to give Sonobello a try. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is our breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative that sculpts, tightens, and lifts your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside. And Lift EX is exclusively available at Sonobello. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever. Call to book your free consultation today.
Well, this weekend, it's the Seahawks versus the Patriots for Super Bowl 60 this weekend. Seattle Seahawks linebacker Derek Hall defied the odds, not only by playing in the biggest game of the year, the Super Bowl, but did you know that he was born at just 23 weeks? Teeny tiny. He weighed just 2 pounds, 9 ounces. He was so small that he was declared dead. He didn't even have a heartbeat. Then he was revived and given just a 1% chance of surviving. His mother was told that he'd never walk, he'd never talk, that he'd just be a vegetable. Well, that vegetable now stands tall at 6'3" and weighs 250 pounds. Along with his accomplishments of being in the NFL and playing in the Super Bowl, Derek Hall is also the founder of the Derek Hall 1% Foundation, which supports preemies and their families, proving that every life matters, that every life deserves a fighting chance. And that's going to do it for tonight's show. Carl will be back on Monday, and be sure to tune into my show tomorrow at Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern, also Sundays at noon. Again, I'm Lidia Curanaj. Thank you so much for joining us. Trust and remember that God is with you and always, always. Bianca De La Garza is up next.